And welcome back, 7th grade students, here with Chapter 4, Lesson 3 from our textbook called Add and Subtract Like Fractions. Actually, we're going to go a page or two back before that lesson. So go ahead and hit pause, make your way. Well, hold on with the pause for a second. So just to focus on what we're doing today. Today's objective, I will add or subtract positive and negative fractions with like denominators, things like 2/6 plus negative 5/6, or 3/11 minus 7/11. Now listen, we've already done this with positive and negative whole numbers, fractions, decimals, even mixed numbers, and we just started to work out how to do problems like 3 minus 7. So all we're doing now is taking the same ideas, and instead of 3 minus 7, we'll do 3/11 minus 7/11. Now understand, what does red and blue make together? Making the purple, the balloon rises up. So our focus eventually will be how to add and subtract complicated mixed numbers, or even some interesting decimal problems. And of course, we'll be using that all through 7th, 8th grade and beyond with even more complicated mathematics. So let's get these skills, shall we? Inquiry question to think about. How can you use a number line to add and subtract like fractions? Hey, why don't you go ahead now, hit pause, get your textbook open, page 279, come back when you're ready. And so we're going to do hands-on activity number 1 together in 8 times at bat. Max hits 2 doubles, 5 singles, and struck out 1 time. Find the fraction of the times that Max hit either a single or a double. All right. So just read along with me, and you're welcome to mark up your textbook. It's your book. Mark that up. Since there were 8 times at bat, we're going to create a number line. I'm going to do a vertical number line here, and we're going to split it into 8 parts. Now, step number 2, we're actually going to draw a line going up, because 2 out of those 8 times he got a hit. He got a double, as a matter of fact. Then, step 3, from the 2 8s, we're going to do another 5 8s more, because he hit 5 singles. And so we can now complete this problem, noticing, please, the denominator does not change. We're still talking 8s, because there were 8 total at bats. Of the 8, 7 out of the 8 were hits, either a single hit or a double hit. So that, ladies and gents, is just one possibility of how to use number lines when adding or subtracting fractions. But let's be honest, that's nothing you haven't seen before. Let's try something a little different, shall we? Find 3/6 minus 4/6. Okay, hold on. Step number 1, we still need a number line split up into sixths. So that's the first thing you're going to do. Let's try a horizontal number line this time. And yes, you may go to the right in the positive direction, 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, and so on, all the way up to 6 sixths, which is a whole. And yes, it's possible we could continue on with 7 6 and 8 6, and so on. Now we can also go to the left in our number line with -1 6, -2 6, -3 6, and so on. So we've split up our number line. Let's go ahead and graph 3 6. Because it is a positive, we're going to graph it to the right. Then we're going to put another arrow right above that, directly above that, I should say. But now, notice, we're going to move 4 units to the left because we are taking away. Therefore, 3 6 take away 4 6. You guessed it, we're still split up into sixths. But in this case, 3 steps to the right, 4 steps to the left, we are a sixth in the negative direction, -1 out of 6. So that's building on our 5th and 6th grade number line skills, but now with positive and negative directions. Moving right along in the same activity, so we should be on page 280 still, I believe. Let's go ahead and find -4/7 minus or subtract or take away 2/7. We're going to fill in the missing numbers here naturally. Everything is cut up into sevenths, and we're going down first, because after all, it is negative. Now remember, please, we have invited you, if you wish, to change subtraction to adding the opposite. But both ways, folks, you should be able to see this as decreasing. It is going down further 2/7. So negative 4/7 take away 2/7, still split up into 7 parts, pieces, portions. But now we are deeper underwater or deeper in debt, however you want to think about it, this time negative 6/7. Let's keep on rocking along. Now I'm going to use red here for the first dot and blue for the second, the arrows. We're going to add 1/5 with 2/5 because first of all, let's go ahead and put our number line in there. So if you need to hit pause and go ahead and copy these down, we're going to split it up into fifths. And 1/5 will go to the right, so I'm going to bring a dot down, but this one is too big. Now we're going to add 2/5, also increasing. I'm going to use blue since this is the second number. And we go to the right 1/2. When we do this, we will quickly see we are still split up into fifths, but now we are 3/5 along the number line. All right, let's make things a little more interesting, shall we? First of all, negative 3/7 plus a negative 1/7. Let's split these up and write in sevenths. Again, if you need to press pause, go ahead and do so. Negative 3/7 will go to the right. So let me go ahead and, excuse me, to the left. So let me go ahead and grab my red arrow for the first number, and I'm going to stretch that out. Once I put the pen down. There we go. Now listen, adding a negative is the same as taking away. It is decreasing. It is going further to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and extend this, but we only need to go one to the left. And so once again, we are still split up into sevenths, but now we are further in debt, further underwater, further to the left. And in this case, we're at negative 4/7. Now, if any time, folks, you need to pause, look back at your work, you're welcome to do so. In fact, if you want to beat me to it, pause the video right now, put your work in, and then come on back. Number 3, negative 3/8 and 5/8. Let's go ahead and split this up into eighths. Negative 3/8 is the first number, so I'll color that in red. We're going to go to the left 3/8. Then we'll go ahead and say, all right, so now we're to the left 3/8, but we need to go to the right positive 5/8. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5/8. Now, folks, we are still split up into eighths, but now we are back into the positives. And if we forget about all those zero pairs, getting rid of all those zero pairs, we find that there are only 2/8 left over. Now, while that's okay, usually we go ahead and reduce it to simplest form. Both answers are correct. It's just that one answer is better than the other. Now let's go on with number 4, splitting these up into 12ths. 8/12 is the first amount. So if I start at 0 and I count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to subtract. Now, again, if you need to, you are welcome to change subtracting 4/12 into adding the opposite. That's totally up to you. But one way or the other, ladies and gents, we should see that subtraction, that adding a negative, decreases or goes down. So I'm going to take this arrow and I'm going to extend it to the left. 1/12, 2/12, 3/12, and 4/12. Still split up into 12ths, as the number line shows, but now, while still in the positives, we're not as far. While that's a good answer, it's not a great answer. If we were to reduce to simplest form, greatest common factor is 4, so 4/12 can be rewritten as 1/3. Carrying on, let's try something with a vertical number line. First, we're going to split it up into ninths. Very first number, negative 4/9 will decrease starting at 0. Let's count down 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Then we add or increase 5/9. So we count up 1 and 2, 3, 4, back to 0 and 5, leaving us with ninths, and we are back in the positives. Not that you need to write the plus sign. You're welcome to do so if you wish. Your final answer of positive 1/9. Pause if you want to beat me to it. So here we are with 4 sevenths minus 6 sevenths. We are going to cut these up into sevenths. The first number increases, so let's count starting at 0 up 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 sevenths. The second number, however, decreases. You may keep it as minus 6 sevenths or switch it to adding the opposite. And so we count down 1 and 2, 3, 4 gets us back to 0, 5, 6 puts us into the negatives. How far are we? Negative 2 sevenths. Now, can I suggest you go ahead and press pause? Come back when you are ready to check your answers. We're going to complete the table on page 282. So first things first, we notice the top row is divided up into sixths, negative 5 to the left, but what happens here? Because we have subtracting a negative. Remember that subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. It is increasing, thus explaining why the 1/6 goes back to the right. Carrying on with this problem. First number of negative 5, 6 will go all the way to the left. Subtract 1/6 goes even further to the left, which explains why we get negative 6/6, which is negative 1. Five, 6 will extend to the right. Subtract 1/6, add a negative 1/6. Don't care how you say it, it is getting smaller, it is decreasing. Splitting them up into sixths. Negative 5, 6 will go to the left in a decreasing manner. And then if we were to start at negative 5, 6 and increase 1/6, we should go to the right. I'm going to encourage you at this point to go ahead and answer number 10 on your own. Refer to the table above. Compare your results for using only the numerators with your results for using the number line and write a rule. So I want you to write a rule right here for how to add and or subtract like fractions. Press pause, write your rule, and come on back when you're ready. Folks, we're going to wrap this up with some guided practice. This is going to be on page 284, and your homework will be the following page. So if you wish, go ahead and write where it says my homework. Write in numbers 1 through 9, first page only, 1 through 9. But we're not going to do your homework for you, so let's go ahead and let's guide you through some practice. Taking a look at number 1, well, it's split up into fifths. What's 3 parts plus 1 part? Well, that would be 4 parts. Notice also it says add and subtract. Oh, yes, and simplest form. We'll get to that in a moment. 2 sevenths, 1 seventh. If we picture a number line, we're going to go to the right 2 and write another 1. 3 sevenths does not simplify. It is simplest form. This is going to get interesting. 5 eighths and 1 eighth. Put those together and you will have 6 eighths, but then we have additional parts or pieces to add. So we can put 6 pieces with 3 pieces and have 9 pieces, but guess what, folks? It is still 9 eighths. Now, while 9 eighths is a good answer, I would argue it could be written in a more sensible manner. Think about it. 9 eighths is 1 whole and an extra eighth. So while both of those answers are correct, I think 1 and 1 eighth is more sensible. Now let's get on to some tougher stuff. Let's look at number 4. Yes, you can see it's cut up into fifths, but picture the number line, picture where you're heading here. If I were to rewrite this as negative 4 fifths, changing the subtraction into adding the opposite, perhaps it's a little easier for some of you then to see that the amount is growing, increasing. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still in the negatives. You plus minus, folks, you're going to see 4 minuses and 1 plus, and you're going to see a 0 pair to get rid of. You number line, folks, you're going to go down 4, but then you're going to go back up or increasing 1. You see your 0 pair right there, definitely in the negative, but in this case, only negative 3 fifths. You could think about it as being less in debt. Or if you think about it, a fish underwater, it is closer to the surface, but still underwater. Carrying on with number 5, where we see 5/14, subtract a negative 1/14. Once again, some of you, I would love you just to look at this and say, aha, take away debt. That's good money. Others of you are going to say, okay, how do I change subtraction and adding the opposite? What is the opposite of negative? Positive. And so while still cut up into 14ths, 5 pieces, and then 1 increased piece reduced by 2/2 will give us 3/7. Number 6, 2/7 minus 6/7. Definitely still 7s. Some folks will choose to change subtraction into adding the opposite. So if I change this to addition sign, what's the opposite of a positive 6/7? That would be a negative. In this case, you are definitely underwater. And if you take away the 0 pairs, you'd find that you were negative 4/7 underwater. At any time, folks, pause, rewind, fast forward if you need. Off to number 7. Of the 50 states in the United States, 14 have Atlantic Ocean coastlines and 5 have a Pacific Ocean coastline. What fraction of the U.S. states have either an Atlantic Ocean or a Pacific Ocean coastline? All right, all this, let's first just use our close reading skills. What is this talking about? Well, what we got here is some states. We got some states on the West Coast. We got some states on the East Coast. And we want to find what fraction of those states have a coastline. Now, that's the first thing, is just being able to retell the problem. Notice I didn't even talk about numbers. Now we go back to our close reading skills. What fractions have either Atlantic or Pacific coastline? 50 states in all, 14 along the Atlantic, 5 because California takes up so much space along the Pacific. Oh, of course, then there's Hawaii and Alaska. Don't forget those. All right, so I've now circled the numbers and what they mean. I've underlined key math terms and I've boxed in the question. Let's look at, of the 50, 14 are along the Atlantic side. Also of the 50, 5 are on the Pacific side. We want to know either or, which means we can put them all together. So if we go ahead and add those, it is still, of course, split up into 50 total states. 19/50 of the states have a coastline either on the Atlantic or the Pacific. Now, I'm going to encourage you at this point, one of two things. Come on over here and rate yourself. If you're feeling really wishy-washy and not sure, go ahead and mark that and be honest. If you're feeling pretty good, then go ahead and mark that. But rate yourself so you and your teacher know where you are, and then try to answer number 8 on your own, building the essential question. What's a simple rule for adding and subtracting fractions? How can you use number lines? How can you use plus and minuses? Whatever it takes. Then go on to your homework, ladies and gents. This shouldn't take more than another 10 or 15 minutes, hopefully less than that. Again, please, where it says my homework, write 1 through 9 and do well.